opera didn't come until many, many years later. When I first went to college, I was on an athletic scholarship, not music, but I had
Wow.
a music class, and there was a bulletin in on the wall that said, of the people who want to sing, especially opera, out of 100, you will get maybe two or three who can actually have a career in opera and concert singing.
Mm.
So I said, forget that. And I didn't think about it until, oh, I guess until the voice started developing and I started getting a lot of positive comments about it and uh, making me think that maybe I might be one of those 2% or 1%, whatever it was.
That's amazing. I love the determination you had. Like, what did you always have that like very determined spirit, even growing up?
What kind of experience?
Determined spirit.
Determined. No. uh, I was completely clueless as to what I was going to do in real life. My father started out as a professional singer. That was his intention, to become a professional singer. But unfortunately, there he was born too early because
Mm-hmm.
later on, the sight of a black singer, especially baritones, I don't know if you know, but baritone is a very common voice as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the tenor, which is,
Mm-hmm.
by comparison, is rare. So a tenor will get more uh, attention in the concert and opera field than would a baritone. So it was something that that was not a very encouraging statistic for me. But
Mm. Yeah.
having gotten more attention for the voice, and I happen to have been in an opera. I still sang. I loved opera, and I
Yeah.
sang opera, but I had never had a voice lesson. I just opened my mouth and sang and hoped. Uh,
Oh wow.
so I was heard in an opera by a voice teacher, and she got to me, told somebody in the cast to give her a call, for me to give her a call, and she talked to me. She talked me into beginning to have voice lessons, which as I said, I'd never had before. And once I got started with her, the voice got, inevitably it's going to get better with the learning and tutelage. So eventually, I could continue to sing in small groups in and around Chicago, just amateur groups. And I got a pretty decent reputation from that singing. But I didn't make the leap, if you will, into professional singing until uh, I had a chance to audition for a musical entitled Showboat. You may
Mm.
be familiar with it,
Yes.
and in which I sing Old Man River. And I didn't think much of it because it seemed a cliche during my earlier years that a black baritone and an Old Man River are brother and sister. You see
Right.
one, you see the other. So I just thought singing Old Man River was a tired cliche for a black baritone, okay?
Yeah.
And then uh, I learned it yawning as I was learning it. Then I finally got in a show and people loved it. They crowded around me. I got calls, I got letters and notes. I never heard that song sung. And I said, I think maybe I was wrong there. And so I began to have a career singing Old Man River in various places around the Midwest mostly.
Mhm.
I was living in Chicago then, and I had sung in I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 or 7 different states around there during the summer. It's almost always during the summer for a summer stock,
Yeah.
summer theater or musical theater they call it.
Mhm.
And one of the gentlemen who heard me said they're they're doing Showboat, and in this very big company, I can't remember the name of the company, and they want you to audition for it. So I did, and I got that one, and then I sang in another company, even bigger, Showboat, Old Man River. Then in the fourth time, I think, or fifth time, a man said, "Well, they need a singer for Porgy and Bess." One of their main singers just left and went to for Austria, and went
Mhm.
to join the opera company there. And the guy who took his place, they needed him to be replaced. It wasn't a huge role, but it was a role, and so I attracted interest doing that. And following that, I got another opportunity. This time, Porgy Porgy and Bess wasn't available, and I got a chance to sing Porgy, which is
Wow.
quite a role. And uh, by that time, I had been singing around, and another gentleman told me these are people I did not know before. He said they're looking for uh, a baritone to sing with New York City Opera, and
Oh,
so I said, "Wow, that's me." And so I auditioned for them, and they hired me, and I got a contract and was there with them for 15 years.
wow.
And then I left. I felt I should go off and do other operas in other cities, frankly, for a little more money. So so I did that, and that was my opera career, and I can continue singing opera, oratorio, and concerts, and for until I retired 5 years ago.
Oh, wow. Only 5 years ago.
Yeah,
So
it was
you
a total of 60 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I was going to definitely ask you about your audition with New York City Opera. Like, what did that feel like? I guess you were already really established with your voice and with the roles that you were taking on. How did it feel going there, knowing that they were asking for you?
Well, you don't. You just do the best you can do. And for some reason, I would get nervous when I sang, but I was
Mm,
going to say, for some reason, I'd never got nervous in an audition. I don't know
really?
why, but I always felt confident, and I was a decent auditioner. So anytime I got an opportunity to audition, I felt very positive about it. A lot of people get nervous for auditions, but I never did. So once the term with New York City Opera, then your name gets around a bit. I even got a chance to sing in Belgium, uh, and as I say, in Canada and New Mexico and my goodness, Bermuda, uh, several different countries over a period of time.
That is amazing. And with an international career, I know language is like very important, especially in opera. How did you approach learning new languages and singing in different languages?
That's a good question, because mainly the three languages generally for a classically trained singer are Italian, German,
Mhm.
and French,
Mhm.
in that order. The Italian being the most popular because there are more operas in Italian that we sing than there are the other two that in uh, German or in French. So I obviously took lessons for quite a while, and you get coached. All opera singers get coached, and all opera coaches are fluent in pronunciation.
Yeah.
You may not speak Italian to hold a conversation, but you can pronounce all the words. So I got extensive coaching uh, in all three languages, and I felt pretty confident. In fact, when I started teaching, one of my classes was diction in Italian and German. I taught diction in those two. I
Wow.
never did get the flair in French, but just German and Italian. So, and I have always been interested in languages, both English as well as foreign languages. So I had kind of a flair for it. Nothing fantastic, but I had a pretty good handle on the languages.
That's amazing because as a singer, I know that especially like Italian, like sing the way they talk kinda. So it's like when you know the words and you have if the diction is good, then it just makes the singing just a little bit more easy. So studying the language is something that I'm definitely working on right now.
So you are a singer.
Yes, sir.
How cool is that? Wow,
Yes,
that's
sir.
terrific. Where
Yes, sir.
where where are you singing now mostly?
I sing in DC mostly. So I sing for Trinity, which is where I met Miss K. And yeah, and that's what I do right now.
Uh-huh. Okay, very good. No, I got when I first started studying, I was very naive. I didn't know much about the business. And my voice teachers said, you should look around and see if you can find a church job. I said, doing what? She said, well, singing.
Yeah.
And I found out that many churches which have the budget for it will hire a soloist. Uh,
Right.
maybe it's only one, maybe it's a soprano. If they have a bigger budget, they'll have a soprano, alto, tenor, and a bass. And she said you should try out for church. So I did, and it was not a Sunday. I don't think there was a single Sunday over a period of, I started at 25 and my last church job was 85. What is that? 60 years.
Wow.
For 60 years, there was not a Sunday that passed that I wasn't singing in a church.
Wow.
Even if I was out of town on an engagement, people would still, I would sing for the local church, whether it was in Atlanta or Denver or where the heck ever. So for 60 years, I was a church soloist. I loved every minute of it too.
So you know a lot of sacred music, I'm sure.
Oh dear.
There's like a role in the oratorio or any sacred piece that you like the best? You enjoy.
Well, there has to be Elijah.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah.
he is the beginning, the middle part, and the end, and that he's all over the place, and that's why I like it. Well, it's very dramatic too. Uh,
Mm,
it's almost operatic in nature. If you've heard it, you would be a witness to that. So yeah,
right.
church work has been very big in my career. In addition to the opera companies for which I sang.
That is amazing. So what kept you motivated to have such a long career? 60 years is a long time to keep singing. What keeps you motivated?
Oh, good question. Uh, I don't know. I guess I just love singing.
Yeah.
And I used to sing obviously I sing in a shower, doesn't everybody?
Yeah.
And I would sing in in the shower, sometimes in my bedroom with the window open. And I even had one time I was singing and we had some space between two buildings and I heard somebody say, shut up. And
Oh no. Oh no.
I found out later it was one of my friends, and he was being funny, but at the time, my poor little feelings were really hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I love singing, and as I say, I started singing at 5 or something like that, and I just sang all the time. I sang in the car, sang in the shower, and I think I liked the sound that I was making, even if other people didn't like, and I hope some did.
Yeah.
It's just it's a physical thing to have your voice coming out of your mouth, so to speak,
Yeah.
and I don't know, it kind of reverberates in your head. It's a physical thing as
Right.
well as a musical and an artistic thing. So
Mhm.
I just love singing.
I love that. And speaking of physical, I know technique is such a, it's not a bugaboo, but something that we all work towards, working in technique and figuring out like the physical part of singing. So there's the joy of singing, and there's the labor kind of when you're talking about technique. How do you approach technique to have to have a voice that's lasted your entire lifetime?
Well, I've got to thank my father because my father had a great voice. And as I started to say earlier, excuse me, uh, black male singers weren't didn't have much attention paid to them during his era. If he had come along 15 years later or something like that, I'm sure he would have had an outstanding career. But as it was, he had a few engagements over the years, a few concerts, few musicals. He did a lot of singing, but it wasn't at a level that you could make a living from it.
Right.
So he eventually just stopped singing. I think the last engagement he had, he did Showboat and sang Old Man River in Indianapolis, Indiana. I remember that. And that was in 1950. And that was the last time he sang professionally. And he went on. He was a printer, a linotype operator, if you know what that is. People who print the newspaper.
Okay.
Newspapers are printed by linotype operators,
Mm.
and so he wound up doing that for the rest of his working years. But he had a fine voice.
Mm. So did he get a chance to see you perform or support your career?
Good question again. You asked good question. Uh, Once
Mm.
he came to hear me. No, twice. Take it back. Came to hear me when I did my first recital, and I was uh, very young at the time, but I had been studying for a few years, and my voice teacher thought I should make my debut recital at some church somewhere. And he came to that, and he said afterwards, he said, "Well, you did fine. You didn't make any mistakes that anybody could tell. Your voice sounded good, and I had been standing up there singing, about to. I can't explain how afraid I was because that
Wow.
was my first recital, and I just said, I walked out there, bowed, motioned to the pianist to start, sang, bowed, motioned to the applause for the pianist, marched off, came back out, marched back on, bowed, motioned to the piano. It was like I was a robot. I have no idea what I was doing, but I didn't make any mistakes. So back to my father, he said, "But you didn't put anything into your material. You didn't do anything with the text." He said, "Your voice was fine." He said, "But you can't just stand up there and sing. You have to get people involved and physically." Well, I said to him in so many words, "I got news for you. No way in the world I could have done anything but what I did. March
Yeah.
out, sing, bow, walk off."
Right.
So that went well, and so eventually, of course, you get to do things. You understand that you have more to do. My voice teacher was very helpful, and you notice I keep saying she, but
Mm.
most men tend to have male voice teachers, and women
Right. Yeah.
tend to have female voice teachers.
Yeah.
I guess I'm the exception, but She was such a fine technician.
Mm-hmm.
All of her students had this. You could tell that we all had the same teacher. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, yeah.
She implanted a technique in all of us that just served many of us very well. She had several excellent singers. Nobody made a career but me, but I guess that's just luck.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was her name?
uh, Believe it or not, Blanche Branch. And
Oh,
that was her real name. What her mother was thinking of, I don't know.
right. Right. Yes, and I think that it's very interesting because having a career in opera is not an easy thing. It's not easy to even, get out there to continue to audition and to hope for having a career. And it's amazing to know that you've been working this for such a long time
Yes.
and had such a great and phenomenal career. I was listening to some of your recordings that are available online. So there's the Tremonisha and then there's the Carrie Nation, which are online.
I haven't heard of that in years.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
So I did a lot of spirituals for a long time, and I had no experience. You might be interested to know that I hadn't heard a spiritual for until I was 15, or no, older than that, because
Wow.
I went to a Christian Science church. Do you
Mm.
happen to know what that is?
I've been to one before.
Yeah, it's a little different. Number one, it has no choir,
Hmm.
and it's a very widespread religion. It's all over the country. Uh, but there was no choir, and obviously no spirituals.
Hmm.
Uh, but the founder thought that choirs were too politically involved in the church, and she didn't want her church to be ruled by a choir, so to speak. That's the best I can get out of it. But didn't know what a choir was like
Wow.
for many years. And so when my teacher suggested I get a church job, that's when I told her I didn't know what a church job was.
Yeah.
But in the long run, I love the church. I did a lot of Elijahs and countless messiahs, needless to say,
Yeah.
and a lot of Bach works as well. But yeah, so I wasn't sure what the racial thing was. Did I mention that before?
No, sir.
Yeah, well, when I saw a black baritone doing, I guess it was Porgy and Bess, I'm not sure,
Hmm.
but I didn't even know, I'm from another era, and I didn't even know that black men were allowed to touch white women in public. Uh,
Oh, wow.
and I saw that on stage, and I was really surprised
Hmm.
and and encouraged as well, uh,
Right.
because I if we sang only for our own people, it's a limited career.
Yeah.
So to know that black singers were around, you didn't not have not very many of them. You can start with Leontine Price and William Warfield and a couple more, but there weren't very many. So
Right.
that got better as the years went on, as you probably know, and it was quite feasible for a black singer to have a major career without having to sing black material all the time. So
Right. Right. I was reading an article about black men in opera and just kind of like the difference between getting hired as a black woman. It was like from 1972. And you were mentioned in there a couple of times talking about the experiences of, just having a career as a black male singer. Were there any other instances in your career where you felt like you were trailblazing as a Black singer?
Uh, I don't think so. I think by and large, I wasn't. I don't remember anybody ever mentioning my being first. I think I think going back to Paul Robeson and William Warfield was the next big name that came along. So people were accustomed to there being a Black classical singer around. It isn't like I was the first or anything like that. So it was it was kind of a accepted thing without being underlined. Guess
Mm,
what? We got a Black opera singer here. Wasn't that women more so? The more so they were accepted. That
mhm.
and women came along. Even there were other Leontine prices beside the one that we know about,
Right.
but it wasn't unusual to see a woman in opera, but it was for a man, especially a baritone,
Right.
and so it was in that sense it was groundbreaking, but in a very subtle kind of undercover way. Not many people were aware of it, and they had heard other Black people sing in foreign languages, so
Mhm.
that wasn't so terribly unusual either. And fortunately, uh, there are language coaches, which I'm sure you're aware of, since you're a singer,
Mhm.
and they will help you with pronunciation.
Yeah.
And at New York City Opera, they had a staff of wonderful coaches that would coach you on both the music, getting all the notes right, as well as pronouncing correctly. So
Mhm.
Sure. And the third thing, they also played the piano. So
Mhm.
they helped you with your language, little hints about vocal technique, and they were excellent pianists. So
Yes.
I was lucky to have come up to the New York City Opera system.
Right.
And they're very, very intelligent, gifted musicians from top to bottom.
That's amazing. So, as an educator, did you start teaching right away, or was it like something that happened during your career?
When I had I had a scholar, as I told you, scholarship at a school in the South, and then I left the scholarship after 2 years, and I came back home to Chicago, and I said, well, I put in 2 years, uh, not having to pay any tuition, and so maybe I can afford to put in a couple more years but after I find a job and that sort of thing. So I went to a college that was just a 5 mile bus ride from my home, and it was registration day. I'm trying to say, so I'm in line with everybody else, and I said, "What to do? What to do?" So I asked a guy there near me. I said, "What's a good subject to register?"
Oh, wow.
I, I had never heard of it before. I'd been a jock. I was an athlete. That's all I cared about was playing basketball. So he said, "Well, I don't know." Said, "You can always do education." And I said, "Education? I thought that's what we all were getting in education."
Wow.
How smart I was. He said, "No, no, 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 no. It is education is a field unto itself. That's where you learn to be a teacher."
Mm.
I said, oh. So I'll major in education. And I did. And I liked it. And I finished, I did 3.5 years in education. I had done 2 years in just general education. So it took me 5.5 years to get out of college. But I love teaching. And I taught uh, the middle school, 7th and 8th grade, music and
Wow.
language for 12 years. And during that 12 years, I was taking my voice lessons. I started teaching the same year that I started voice lessons. And so after 12 years of teaching, 7 years of voice lessons really, but 12 years of teaching and singing around, singing everywhere I was asked, not making any money, just singing. I finally got the chance to audition for New York City Opera, and then they signed me for contract. When I was auditioning for New York City Opera, they were across the room, a big rehearsal studio, and another guy was sitting next to me, and he was waiting to be heard also to audition, and it was Placido Domingo, and he had just come from Spain,
Yeah.
just come from Spain, and he hadn't done any singing in this country yet, but he was very well known in Spain. He was like a prodigy. He could play the piano. He could conduct. He coached singers when he was still a teenager. So he was a prodigy, and I didn't know who he was, of course. And, they took him. It was in the spring, no, in the winter, and they took him right away, and they took me the next year. I think I always tell myself, well, they probably just needed more tenors. That's why they took him. But yeah, he and I started our careers together. He was and is 10 years younger than I. He was 25 when he auditioned. I was 35.
Wow.
So, but it was okay. You know, you can start out at 35. Obviously, I did. But it was interesting. He was very, very nice guy. We got along famously.
Oh, that's so amazing. I love that you talk about like when you started your career, because I think it's encouraging for people to know that it could take time, and it does take time, but you have to have that love for music to drive you forward to continue to fulfill your dream. And it can happen for you in many different ways.
Exactly. Very, very well said. Because years before, if you had told me I was going to have a career in singing, I forgot to tell you, but when I guess when I was in college, it was in my 20s, I was singing all the time. My friend and I would go out to clubs at night, and I would say, "You need anybody to sing a song?" And I'd sing my heart out, and nobody paid any attention to it. Everywhere I sang, I tried to sing pop songs, which I never had the voice for a pop song, but I didn't know what the heck did I know. So I kept trying, and I kept getting turned down. So that's what that encouraged me to not have a singing career.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize that I had a classically trained voice. I shouldn't say I had classically inherited voice from my father, and a classically trained voice from my voice teacher. So there's no way I was going to be a pop singer. No.
Yeah. I love classically inherited. That is how I feel when I'm singing. Like, I just feel like my voice is just made to sing opera. So I love it.
What's your favorite song and or aria?
My favorite aria right now is Martin alla Arten, which is I just like that one because it's so fast and dramatic, and it just feels so good to sing, and it's just I like Mozart. So
are you a mezzo or soprano?
I'm a soprano.
Soprano, okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because you've got some weight in your voice, and
yeah, I do. I feel like some of it is the Southern in me. Yeah, but
where are you from?
I'm from Mississippi.
Mississippi. Oh.
Yes, sir.
My wife taught the Jackson State for 2 years.
Oh wow! I went to Jackson State.
Yeah. Oh really? Yeah. That's when we met. I wasn't going there, but when I met her, that's what she was doing, teaching in Jackson State. She loved it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you were in Mississippi, or was she from Chicago?
No, I met her at a summer resort up in Michigan, and I went there to visit her, but I didn't teach there, and I didn't spend any time there except I come see her on the holidays, Thanksgiving or something.
Yeah.
until she moved back to Chicago. We got married.
Oh, okay.
So I sort of know what it was like to be in Mississippi. I had a couple of things. I remember I was getting on a bus once, and we were all standing waiting for the bus. And when the bus came, and I stepped to get on it, and the policeman was standing there handling the crowd. And he
Mm.
said something like, "Step back, no, take your turn," or something. And
Mm.
he let a white woman get on ahead of me. Well, he wasn't angry or evil, but that I can't complain about that being a racial incident.
Yeah,
But
that's
but it was there, and you knew it was there. And
right.
I remember one. Well, that involved the N word, so I won't bring that up.
Oh,
So
wow.
actually, it wasn't bad. Being in the South wasn't bad
Yeah.
because but the school I went to was in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
So it isn't like I didn't know what the South was like because I was there for 2 years.
Right. It's interesting because a lot of the narrative around Chicago and the South is like there's some similarities and there's some major differences. Was it like a culture shock coming in the South?
Having heard it wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. I, the standard thing for somebody who is heading for the South for the first time is for people who have been South to say, watch out because they have sidewalks and there's somebody with a switch watching you. And when you hit the sidewalk will come up and knock you down and they'll throw you in the street. Well, that was
Mhm.
all a lie, of course. There's no sidewalks with switches.
Mhm.
But I wasn't around people. I actually was not in Savannah. It was in Thunderbolt, Georgia, which is
Wow.
which is a black community, and I went to Savannah in 2 years. I was in Savannah maybe 3 or 4 times. Otherwise, I was in Thunderbolt, and there was nothing but us there.
Yes.
So I didn't feel anything racial.
Right. Because it
Yeah,
was a strong, tight knit community, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I know it's kind of hard to explain. I wasn't around white people, as I told you. I went to a
Mhm.
suburban black college, and that never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
You know? So one time, one of our we had a white community on the other side of the highway, and you had to pass through our campus, the black campus, and white people drove constantly, through the campus. They at a reasonable speed, no problems. You didn't even know they were there unless you just happened to look. Except this one time, we were standing at the entrance of the college near the gate where you drive in, and a pickup truck passed by and said, "Get out of the way, ins," using the N word.
Mhm.
And we had a young man with a violent temper from uh, New Orleans. He was a Creole.
Mhm.
And he said hollered at the guy as he drove on. He said, "Your mammy's in." And
Oh, wow.
the guy ripped into reverse and came back. And before he could, I think he said, "What did you say?" This guy who had said it reached up. He stood up on the running board of the pickup and smacked him right in the nose, and blood came gushing. And I said, "Oh my God,
Oh, gosh.
what's going to happen now?"
Right.
So that night, as evening poured on, uh, our people started getting bats and sticks and guns and knives, knowing we were going to be attacked.
Right.
And then at one point, unfortunately, I had no bats or sticks, so I was out of luck. And we saw this crowd coming down the highway.
Oh, wow.
But as it turned out, our coach, who was quite a guy, quite a personality, and he'd been around for a long time, he was well into his 50s, he knew the guy who was leading the white mob, and he calmed it all down. But I
Mhm.
thought that was going to be my last day on earth.
Oh,
But
gosh.
that's the only thing that, only incident in 2 years that
Wow.
I had any experience with.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Thank you so much, Mr. Pearson, for talking with me. This has been amazing.
Well, it was a pleasure. You have a wonderful personality. I'm lucky you got this assignment.
Thank you so much. And I.
Glad to have been redeemed. Does you always aim to speak